It is official, the first War Games match has been announced for Survivor Series. Details on that and possibly some surprise additions to both sides. AEW Dynamite is set to feature a street fight between two teams involving the Don Callis family, Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega alongside Paul White and Kota Ibushi. But it is also set to have a big sponsorship element to it. We'll let you know what that is. We've got the ratings for Friday's episode of SmackDown on Fox. Seth Rollins retains his World Heavyweight Championship against Sami Zayn last night on Raw. Zoe Stark is the new #1 contender for the Women's World Championship. The Miz is the #1 contender for the Intercontinental Championship. The Creed brothers and Ivy Nile are officially caught up to the main roster, signing their main roster contracts. Sting and Darby Allin have a tag team match announced for AEW Dynamite this week. Gene Snitsky appears in a backstage moment with Chelsea Green on Raw. And we have the ratings for Friday's episode of Rampage. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off talking about Survivor Series, with the War Games match being now made official for the event in a couple of weeks' time in Chicago. During the broadcast of WWE Crown Jewel on Saturday, fans learned that for the second consecutive year, the upcoming Survivor Series premium live event would feature WWE's version of the legendary War Games match. 2 days later on Raw, fans learned some of the names in this year's male War Games encounter, or at least some of them. Following Seth Rollins' successful World Heavyweight Championship defense against Sami Zayn in the main event, which we'll get to later on, both men were attacked by the Judgment Day. Predictably, the battle was then joined by Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. All four babyfaces have been feuding on and off with the Judgment Day since far back as WrestleMania. And after this latest brawl, Raw General Manager Adam Pearce had officially had enough. Entering the ring with a microphone, Pearce declared that the two sides would enter the double cage on November 25 to participate in the men's War Games match. Now, while the participants were not officially announced, it seemed clear, and you can see the match graphic on the screen right there, from the words of Pearce and Michael Cole on commentary, the match will pit Finn Balor, Damian Priest, and Dominic Mysterio, along with the Judgment Day, alongside the hanger-on, as it were, JD McDonough, against Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, Uso, and Rhodes. That said, a change in that lineup is always possible. It also potentially is likely that both teams will add on an additional member between now and Survivor Series, as WWE's War Games matches have involved 5 performers per team in the past. This possibly leaves the door open for one or more major returns. Of course, one is former WWE champion Randy Orton, who is reportedly eyeing November 25 as his return date after more than a year on the shelf with an injury. And despite protests and reports to the contrary, some fans are still expecting the possibility of CM Punk to return to WWE in his hometown of Chicago, so I guess you never know. But what are your thoughts on that War Games lineup? Who do you think will be added to it? What's your thoughts on all of it? Let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comment section below. Now, Dynamite is set to feature a street fight. Of course, this is taking place in a couple weeks' time prior to AEW Full Gear. Now, AEW Full Gear is less than 2 weeks away, but it's not the only show with big matches coming up for the promotion. Just days before the event, the go-home AEW Dynamite before Full Gear will feature a street fight with Konosuke Takeshita, Powerhouse Hobbs, Kyle Fletcher, and Sammy Guevara of the Don Callis family taking on Kenny Omega, Chris Jericho, Kota Ibushi, and the returning Paul White. It's a match that's so big that AEW will also have some pretty big sponsorship for the match. Fightful Select reports that none other than video game company SEGA, best known for being behind the beloved Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, will be sponsoring the bout. In addition to that, AEW has already filmed some content for the match with SEGA, which will be used to promote the match over the next week or so. It's unclear if AEW and SEGA's relationship will be used to promote an upcoming SEGA game, or if it's just an agreement between the two sides. The video game Powerhouse's bigger upcoming release is Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, which is scheduled for release on November 9. The game is a spin-off of the long-running Like a Dragon series, known previously as the Yakuza series, which has previously featured wrestlers from New Japan Pro Wrestling. SEGA becomes the latest in the long line of sponsorships for AEW that they have secured for notable matches, with the most recent being the Texas Chainsaw Massacre death match between Jeff Hardy and Jeff Jarrett in August. The promotion has also had tie-ins with Warner Bros. Discovery properties, including the HBO series House of the Dragon and Discovery Channel's Shark Week, with both crossovers occurring in 2022. So we'll wait and see indeed what that crossover and what that promotion looks like. And we got the ratings for Friday's episode of SmackDown on Fox, the go-home show for Crown Jewel. After a week spent on FS1, thanks to the World Series, SmackDown was back in its usual home on Fox this past Friday night. But as has been the case with Raw, NXT, Dynamite, and Collision, sports were there to take a bite out of the show's overall viewership total. WrestleNomics reports that Friday's episode of SmackDown drew 2.119 million total viewers and a 0.53 rating in the coveted 18 to 49 demographic. The numbers were expected up from last week's FS1 episode, which drew 1.145 million total viewers and a 0.36. However, the numbers also marked a significant decline from SmackDown's last episode on Fox 2 weeks ago, which drew 2.253 million viewers and a 0.59 in the 18 to 49. Not counting last week's FS1 broadcast, last Friday's SmackDown drew the lowest total number the program had done since September 8. The quarter hours of the show indicate that most of the interest rested in the program between Roman Reigns and LA Knight, with an in-ring promo between the two opening the show with a strong 2.310 million viewers and a 0.56 in the 18 to 49, the high point for both throughout the show. By the third quarter, however, total viewership had dropped to 2.098 million total viewers, hovering around that number until quarter 8, which dropped to a show low of 1.999 million viewers for Bianca Belair's match with Bayley. The match similarly drew a show low 0.50 in the 18 to 49. Now, SmackDown faced competition from the NBA, going head-to-head with the New York Knicks versus Milwaukee Bucks game that drew 1.6 million viewers and a 0.51 in the 18 to 49. While it's unclear if it had any effect, of course, the recent SmackDown episode didn't air live. It actually was in the can. It had been taped a week prior due to WWE traveling to Saudi Arabia for the Crown Jewel Premium Live event. So likely as well, many people may have seen the results on social media and or online as well. So that's the ratings for SmackDown on Fox. Now, we spoke about this in the first story regarding the WarGames match being made official for Survivor Series, a match that was announced to open Monday night's episode of Raw. Seth Rollins successfully retained his World Heavyweight Championship over Sami Zayn by the slimmest of margins, turning a Boston Crab into a flash pin to earn the victory. The finish to the match looked to favour Zayn, who hit a Blue Thunder Bomb and an Exploder in succession before attempting a Boston Crab, but Rollins snuck away with the win thanks to his crafty reversal. Rollins opened the show by stating that he had two people to thank for his title defense at Crown Jewel: his opponent for the event, Drew McIntyre, for bringing the best out of him, and Sami Zayn for preventing Damian Priest's Money in the Bank cash-in attempt. The latter thank you was done in person in the ring, and for his efforts, Rollins offered Zayn a championship opportunity. Initially hesitant, citing Rollins not being 100% health-wise, Zayn ultimately came around and accepted the match, as Rollins reminded him that veterans like him aren't ever at 100%. The match was Rollins' 7th consecutive defense of the World Heavyweight Championship, but the first to take place on television since June. It was also the first televised singles match between Zayn and Rollins in more than 4 years. So Seth Rollins retains his title, but again, now the opponents will be partners at Survivor Series in WarGames. Speaking of Survivor Series, a Women's World Championship match has been made official for the show. 14 women squared off in a Battle Royal on Monday's Raw to determine the number one contender for Rhea Ripley's Women's World Championship. But in the end, Zoe Stark stood tall, last eliminating Shayna Baszler to secure the title opportunity against Ripley at Survivor Series. After getting down to the final four of Stark, Baszler, Raquel Rodriguez, and surprisingly, Ivy Nile in an impressive Raw in-ring debut, the Battle Royal was anyone's match, but Nile was yanked off the apron by an eliminated Nia Jax to remove her from the equation, while Rodriguez was subsequently double-teamed and eliminated by Baszler and Stark. The finalists would never actually get back in the ring, finishing out the match on the apron itself, as Stark eliminated Baszler with a super kick, followed by a DDT on the apron. Stark was one of the 4 adversaries that Mammy had to fend off at Crown Jewel this past weekend, and both women competed in the 2023 Royal Rumble, but the title match at Survivor Series will be the first time they've squared off in a 1-in-1 encounter. It initially appeared that the Battle Royal would have 16 combatants, but as they made their way down to the ring, Xia Li attacked Becky Lynch, taking the former NXT Women's Champion out of action and getting herself removed from the contest as a result. So it certainly looks like that Xia Li-Becky Lynch feud is going to continue and lead to a match at some point down the line. Speaking of Survivor Series and number one contenders, The Miz is the number one contender for the Intercontinental Championship. After a bizarre finish to a fatal 4-way Intercontinental Championship number one contenders match, The Miz has earned a title shot against Gunther at Survivor Series, prevailing over Bronson Reed, Ricochet, and Ivar on Raw. The end of the match saw The Miz counter a tsunami attempt from Reed into a roll-up at the same time that Ivar hit a moonsault on Ricochet. The referee situated himself between all four men, counting each pin attempt simultaneously, but only Ricochet kicked out, with Reed eating the pin from The Miz. After some confusion, he was declared the winner and celebrated in turn. Gunther was shown backstage during the match, taking in the action on a monitor, with his title proudly adorned over his shoulder. His record-setting championship reign now holds a firm 512 days, having surpassed the Honky Tonk Man in early September, with a successful defense against Chad Gable on Raw. The Miz, meanwhile, is an 8-time Intercontinental Champion and has often proclaimed himself as the greatest to hold that title, so a feud with Gunther has plenty to build off right away. The match at Survivor Series will be the first ever between The Miz and Gunther, though it is likely that the challenger will have ample opportunity to prepare for the challenge in the coming weeks against the champion's Imperium running mates, that being Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci. So what are your thoughts on The Miz being the number one contender for the Intercontinental Championship and facing Gunther at Survivor Series? We spoke about Ivy now briefly earlier on. The Creed brothers and herself are now officially main roster combatants. 3 NXT stars were officially called up to Raw during a backstage segment on last night's show. After making their star-making appearance on last week's episode of Raw, the Creed brothers, that being Brutus and Julius Creed, as well as Ivy now, were shown in a backstage segment this week with General Manager Adam Pearce, as the trio all had leather-bound folders in their hands, announcing that they've officially signed on to join the Raw roster. Adam Pearce seemed pleased with his acquisition. Later in the segment, DIY, that being Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, joined the group and were happy to see them on the Raw roster. Noting that they had been waiting, they challenged the Creeds to a match which took place during Raw. In the end, Ludwig Kaiser popped up out of nowhere to deliver a big kick to the head of Johnny Gargano 1 week after DIY had defeated Imperium. After that, the Creeds dropped Gargano with a big Brutus Ball, picking up their second main roster victory in as many weeks. So the Creed brothers and Ivy now officially main roster superstars. Let's switch gears here and talk about AEW Dynamite on Wednesday. Will feature a big tag team match with Sting and Darby Allin in action. As previously reported, All Elite Wrestling announced yesterday that Sting, Darby Allin and Adam Copeland will team for the first time against Lance Archer and The Righteous on the November 11 episode of Collision, but it seems like the Stinger will have a tune-up match this Wednesday ahead of his first time teaming with the Rated R superstar. On Monday afternoon, AEW President Tony Khan announced that Sting will team with Darby Allin to face the Outrunners on November 8th episode of AEW Dynamite from Portland, Oregon. This bout will mark Sting's first match in Oregon since 1989 and likely his final Oregon match ever. The former WCW heavyweight champion previously announced that he will have the final wrestling match of his legendary career at AEW Revolution 2024 next year. Of course, at Full Gear, Sting will team with Darby Allin and the aforementioned Adam Copeland to face Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne in a trios match. So that match is going to be taking place tomorrow on TBS. Now, this was quite a surprising backstage cameo that didn't take place during Raw. It was actually in a digital segment. It never was and still is not Gene Snitsky's fault. Chelsea Green, one half of the Women's Tag Team Champions, found this out on last night's Raw following her elimination from the number one contenders Battle Royal to determine Rhea Ripley's next challenger. As can be seen on social media, Green was seen walking backstage complaining about the fact she was included in the Battle Royal, a match that gave her charity vibes earlier on in the show. Quote, "No matter what, I'm a champion and nobody should have put Piper and I in that match. Who's to blame for that?" Green asked. Just then, Snitsky confronted Green and delivered his "it wasn't my fault" catchphrase, causing a shocked-looking Green to storm away. Now, this was Snitsky's first WWE appearance since his release from the company in December 2008. In subsequent years, Snitsky has wrestled on the independent circuit. He had a brief run in Impact Wrestling as a member of Team Dixie in 2014, but never really had an extended run with the promotion or anything like that. Most recently, Snitsky returned at MLW's Never Say Never event in what was his first singles match in over 10 years. Thereafter, Snitsky also wrestled MLW World Champion Alex Kane at an MLW taping in September, but has remained away from Court Bauer's promotion ever since then. One can just assume that Snitsky was just visiting old colleagues backstage since Raw was held in his home state of Pennsylvania. It's unknown if the 53-year-old has inked a Legends deal to return to the company or if most likely it was just a one-off cameo. If we get any more details than that, of course, we'll let you know. Finally, we have the ratings for AEW Rampage on TNT on Friday night as well, and it wasn't good for the Friday night show, drawing the lowest viewership since June, but actually having a demo rating that was actually a little bit up. The viewership figure and demo rating for Friday's edition edition of AEW Rampage on TNT has been revealed. Per Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, Rampage drew 298,000 viewers, which is down from the October 27 edition that drew 319,000 viewers. This is the lowest total viewership for the program since the June 9 episode. In the key 18 to 49 demographic, Friday's show scored a 0.11 rating. This is up from the week prior that scored a 0.09 rating. The show featured Penta El Zero Miedo defeating Commander and El Hijo del Vikingo in the opener. Also, Daniel Garcia defeated Trent Beretta in the main event. Post-match, Garcia challenged MJF for the AEW World Championship. So what are your thoughts on the ratings and the viewership for Rampage last week? Is this just a case of this is what it is? It's going to be a lowly rated and viewed show because it's Friday night, it's taped, and it just doesn't matter in comparison to Dynamite and Collision. Let me know your thoughts and takes about that. But there you go, guys. That's the latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.